Welcome to SheVentures. I'm Doria, co-founder of CentSai. Listen to women who take risks, build community, and get shit done. Recording from Madison Avenue in New York City. Alexa Carlin pivoted from a 17-year-old superstar blogger to leading event producer, founding WEX, Women Empower Expo, a conference for women business owners. A near-death experience could have derailed her. Instead, she discovered the most valuable trait she had. How do you turn a setback into a second chance? Listen on this episode of SheVentures. Alexa, you have an incredible story. You survived a near-death experience that you've turned into a gift to reach, motivate, and inspire others. You're an entrepreneur, a book author, teacher, renowned public speaker, and the founder of WEX, the Women's Empowerment Expo Conference. Before we jump into your accomplishments, I wanted to welcome you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to talking with you.
I thought it would be interesting to learn a little bit about you before you became the Alexa that we know today. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in South Florida, and I was always the shy person in school, let's put it that way. And I share that because I want people to understand the journey it takes to gain that courage and confidence to go after what you love.
Who were the most impactful people in your childhood?
My mom and my dad, for sure.
What was specific to their parenting?
My dad has been an entrepreneur since I'm younger, forever actually. So I always saw him as a really hard worker, and I really just from being a person on the sidelines watching him, I saw what type of work ethic that you need to have in order to make an idea and turn it into a reality. And even through such hard challenges regarding the business side, he never gave up. So that was a huge thing for me. And then with my mom, she always strived to instill confidence in me and my younger sister. And even when I went through a lot of periods of self-doubt, she kept on saying you have to be confident in yourself and never give up. And those were the two things she always said: be confident and never give up. It was this sense of patience to achieve what you want in life when it's that meaningful to you.
It's so true. I think that people see ventures all of a sudden and they get this idea that it's an overnight success and have no idea about the amount of work that went into it before. And so it's wonderful that you had the opportunity to see that in both of your parents. You mentioned that your first company you started when you were 17, and I have to admit I had so much fun researching you, Alexa.
Thanks.
I read that you saw a t-shirt that you liked with the design of Africa and a peace sign that was made by the LA-based fashion brand Omnipeace. And you saw that they donated 25% of their proceeds to help build schools in Africa, and that really resonated with you. So you wrote to the founder asking if you could make jewelry. And 4 months later, you got a yes. You sold 4 bracelets. And I was wondering, what did that first business experience teach you?
Yeah, so that was my first dive into entrepreneurship. And it was just, I had this idea. I was inspired by that shirt, like you mentioned. And I was like, hey, they're not doing any jewelry, so maybe I could design jewelry for them. I was really into fashion as well. And what it taught me is that perseverance and persistence are really game changers to your success. So I emailed any email I could find. This is before social media, and of course heard nothing back. But then I continued to follow up. And 4 months later, all of a sudden I got a response that the founder wanted to set up a conference call with me.
What was that moment like?
I was very nervous. I don't know if she actually knew I was a senior in high school, but I remember like getting all of my notes together in my little journal. I went into my dad's office and I just basically shared why I wanted to do this and why I wanted to help their mission through my own brand. And so that whole experience, I mean, I didn't know how to get jewelry designed and find a manufacturer. I didn't know how to print the hang tags and the packaging, which I just did at Office Depot. And I didn't know how to sell even. So it was all just kind of like figuring out a way to make it happen. And I talk about that a lot, is that if you are an entrepreneur, an innovator, a creative, like it is your job to find a way. And so it was a year of development. And then right before I graduated high school, the bracelets came out, started selling them word of mouth. And then when I went to college, I went to the University of Florida, which is a huge university. Word of mouth marketing wasn't the best strategy because I did not know anyone at the school. So that's when I had to, again, find a way to sell my inventory. And I taught myself how to code a website on the free iWeb service that came with my Mac computer I got for my graduation present. And I asked, I mean, obviously, like, you have a website up, but how are you going to drive traffic?
Right.
And I had this idea. I was like, hey, what if OmniPiece puts my bracelets on their website? I didn't realize that was drop shipping. And they agreed to it. And then I started getting orders from all over the world.
How many orders did you get over that time?
I think it was a few thousand before I sold out of my bracelets. But again, it was all just, learning as I go. And after the bracelets sold out, when I reordered inventory, then it kind of slowed down a bit. But that was also because I was in college, and all of a sudden there was some challenges within the main company based in LA. So right there, I discovered, like, you need to really do your due diligence and research to what's going on in your partner's business as well.
Yes.
And so that was definitely a hard lesson.
I can only imagine. And then, so now you're in college, and not now, but at that point, you were in college, and you started your next venture, which began as a blog called Hello Perfect in 2011. And I watched some of the clips from then that are still on YouTube. And in one of them, you share an anecdote about how you came up with the idea that you were in a bar, standing in line for the bathroom. There was a long line of women, and you were listening to them talk. And they were talking about themselves, and the messages were very negative. It was, I look fat, if my hair only did this, etc. And so you had this epiphany about what is perfection. And I was wondering if you could talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it was very common to see women in particular criticize themselves in the mirror. Oh my God, this dress looks horrible on me. My hair doesn't look good. I should have worn this. I need to work out. Like, just, all of the things that are pretty common to hear.
Right.
And I just noticed this reoccurring thought that I continued to have. And that was, I haven't heard one person give themselves a compliment in a very long time. And why was this? Why did we not look in the mirror and say out loud, dang, I look really good today? So like, why? I mean, if we thought that, it was never spoken of. Why? Because we would be judged, because we would be looked like egotistical, because we need to, look at even that famous skit or scene in Mean Girls when she doesn't participate in criticizing herself in the mirror, Lindsay Lohan in the movie.
I remember.
And they look at her like she's crazy, like she needs to say something. So, that should definitely not be what it is. Like, that should not not be what we're doing to ourselves. That should not be what we're teaching young girls that are looking up to us. So I wanted to change that, and Hello Perfect was the idea I had to do that.
And speak to me a little bit about how the initial part of it worked. I did see in some videos women, and it was actually more girls, young women, holding up answers to the question, perfect is, and then they would put their own explanation of what that is. So that was one part of it. And if one believes that beauty is really more of an inside job, why do you think women and girls are under so much pressure to conform to these stereotypes?
Because everybody wants to fit in, and when the majority are doing one thing, it's easy to conform. So it's about empowering young leaders, older women, to be courageous to not be within the majority, and then hopefully add more people to their tribe, so to say. And to me, what I wanted to showcase with this Perfect Is movement, which was one of the main campaigns of Hello Perfect, was, there is there's not one set definition for the word perfect. I'm interviewing all these people, including celebrities like Mark Cuban, Shaquille O'Neal, Steve Madden, Rebecca Minkoff, like huge influential celebrities, and nobody out of all these people have had the same definition for the word, showing that there isn't one meaning. And so I wanted this to really empower people to redefine it, to help them become the best.
Let me ask the question this way. What is perfect for you currently versus what it was at the start of Hello Perfect?
Good question. Currently, I would say perfect is having the courage and confidence to lead authentically. And back then it was perfect is making a difference in one person's life, in your community, or in the world. As long as you make a difference, you are perfect.
Okay, so there was a shift.
There was a shift. I think because now I've never spoke about this. This is a really good question, but you define it in a sense of what you are striving to be. And I already, since I was 17 years old, have ingrained in myself that my whole why I do what I do is to make a difference in at least one person's life. So it's become habitual to me in a sense. So I don't need to define it that way because it's already part of who I am. And rather right now, I'm continuing to look for that courage and confidence to lead authentically.
Which you are doing so well with WEX and all of the other projects that you're involved in, and we'll get to those shortly. In 2013, your senior year, you suddenly became gravely ill, and this is a part of your story that you share so authentically. You went into septic shock. You were put into a medically induced coma. You spent 10 days in the hospital, 6 days in ICU, and you were given a 1% chance of living. You defied all odds. What do you recall about that time?
This was definitely a pivotal moment in my life, and I remember a lot of things, but one in particular was the power of my mind at the time when I only had my mind to use. So when I woke up out of the coma, I wasn't able to breathe, move, or speak on my own. Like I had a breathing tube. I was hooked up to 9 different bags of antibiotics. And I couldn't even have a glass of water, but my mind was intact. And so that was like the only thing I had control over. And I remember picturing my mind to be this pure, healthy pink, and the rest of my body was like black and rotting away from sepsis because it was killing all of my organs. And I would push down this healthy pink color to the rest of my body, trying to visualize this sense of health flooding into the rest of my organs, my veins, my bloodstream. And I remember this so vividly. And I never read this in a book or anything. It was just something intuitively, because when you only have control of your mind, you're going to use it to your advantage, or try to at least.
Right.
And I recall that right now is because I now really always try to think back to that moment, especially when it's so easy to get into the repetitive societal way of thinking, right? Like of what's going on now. Oh, my life sucks. Oh, this is so challenging. Oh, this is not working out. Oh, I have financial trouble. Whatever it is, it's like all of that time and energy you're spending on the challenges, that's energy taken away from things you do have control over. And so in that moment in the ICU, I only had control over one thing. And if I spent all of my energy on that, and I truly, truly believe and feel it had an impact to why I'm here today.
You had a laser focus on healing yourself. And that is a big part of where you are now. It's that laser focus.
Right.
You went back to Hello Perfect after this, but you weren't completely well during this time, but you did go back to it with a renewed passion. You made it into a 501c3, and you created a curriculum for middle school girls. What was the curriculum about?
That curriculum was something I was trying to discover, like what type of positive change can I make when it comes to young girls, young women, young leaders, in helping them achieve their dreams. And in order to achieve your dreams, you have to have that self-esteem and that confidence in what you're doing and who you are, even regardless of what other people may say about you.
And you mentioned in an interview that you yourself face cyberbullying. And so I would imagine that was part of why it was a key piece of the self-esteem building that you wanted to focus on.
Yes, yeah. I think we all probably have experienced bullying in some way.
Yes.
But yeah, there was a lot of cyberbullying that I dealt with in middle school. And it definitely had an impact, for sure.
Middle school, I have to say, both of my daughters are in middle school, and it can be an incredibly disempowering time for girls.
So the curriculum was something that I was working on, and I was going into the middle schools and teaching it like as an after-school thing, that after-school club, I guess you could call it. And it was very, very difficult to get into schools. I would say that was like the most difficult part. Let alone then advertising it and getting people behind it to support it. And there was also no money in it. Obviously, we know that schools have very little funding. So then I would go into private schools, but it was extremely hard to bring in a new curriculum, even how important self-esteem is, into schools. And I realized, like, I'm spending so much time, and this was a shift. I'm spending so much time just trying to get through the red tape, when really I can reach them through my blog, through social media now, through other forms, that if I spent more time this way, I could actually reach more people, reaching those 150 countries, instead of just trying to work at the governmental level of getting into the school system.
That makes sense. There is so much bureaucracy in schools. You mentioned garnering the attention of celebs like Mark Cuban, Marc Jacobs, and others. Did that happen on its own, or did you reach out to them? How did that come about?
So I actually ran into them in person. Michael Kors was the first one, and I got accepted to Teen Vogue Fashion University, which was this 3-day conference in New York City, and I got accepted 2 years in a row, and I was in heaven. This was when I was in college, because my goal was to work in the fashion industry. And the second year I went, that's when I had Hello Perfect, so I had all my flyers with me, and Michael Kors was one of the keynote speakers, and then they had Q&A time, and there was about 500 students in this auditorium, and I raised my hand, and I got asked or chosen to ask a question. And I stood up and I asked him his definition of perfect, and I had this girl next to me film it. I was so nervous. And then Marc Jacobs happened a year later when I was interning 1 week for New York Fashion Week, and I saw him at a Fashions Night Out party in his store, which was very unplanned. He was not supposed to be there, and then there he was, and I asked him his definition of perfect, which can I share that story? It's actually
absolutely.
Okay, it's a crazy story, and I don't believe there's anything such as a coincidence. So me and my friend, this was senior year, so 2012, fall senior year. I started Hello Perfect 2011 to give some perspective.
Right.
And we got asked by someone to do the social media for the Walter Baker fashion show. And so we were there for a few days in New York City, me and my best friend Angela. But the night before New York Fashion Week, they used to have this thing called Fashions Night Out, where all the stores in Soho stay open late. They all have parties like free drinks, appetizers. Sometimes they have celebrity appearances, like Victoria's Secret had Alessandra Ambrosio, a Victoria's Secret model. Mm-hmm. One store had a Miss America you could take a photo with. Other stores had like make your own tote bag, get some beauty samples. So things like that, all throughout the streets of Soho. So we had this campaign where it's called like Hello Perfect's Fashions Night Out bucket list, because the website of Fashions Night Out would list all these parties going on. We chose our 10 favorite things, and we were on this like social media hunt of trying to achieve all of these things on our bucket list and share it with our followers. And so we had a lot to do because the streets were packed. You could barely move, let alone get into any of the stores. Thousands of people. And so I was like, we have so much to do. Let's go down this side like alleyway, like just a different way than the main street. And we go down this side street, and there's all these punch buggy cars lined along the streets that were wrapped like a ladybug, and beautiful like guy models standing outside. And it was to promote Marc Jacobs' new perfume. And we take we have this giant Hello Perfect sign, which I made from hot pink poster board and cut it into our circular logo and painted on the words Hello Perfect on it. And we would have people take photos with it. And he said, I think I heard Marc Jacobs is going to stop by. And we're like, no way, because that was not on the main website of Fashions Night Out. And he's like, no, I really heard about it. And Marc Jacobs was by far my favorite designer since I was younger. So we go into this store. It's so small, like it's so small you could barely walk in it. We get one of their bottle like champagne that they're giving out. We're like, okay, we're gonna take one quick swoop through the store, but we have so much to accomplish, and then we're gonna leave. So we get to the back of the store, and all of a sudden I feel pushing of all of these like people just like pushing me, and I turn around, and Marc Jacobs is sliding his way behind the counter. And here he is right next to me. And I was like, oh my God. And he starts signing products people were buying. And I'm standing there. People are like hovering, and it's getting very claustrophobic. And I was like, this is my chance. And I was so nervous. But I asked him, I told him, like, I was like, my name is Alexa Carlin. I started this blog with the mission to redefine perfection. Would love to know your definition of perfect. And he said, perfect? What is? And I was like, oh, Marc Jacobs, you're such a genius. I was so nervous. And then, I was going to leave because it was like everyone was trying to get his attention, and it was so crowded. And all of a sudden, when I was like, thank you so much. And I'm ready to head out. And he stops me. He touches my hand and he stops me. And he puts his wrist on the counter, and he turns over his hand. And he's wearing a long sleeve button down shirt. He slides his shirt up to show the inside part of his wrist. And inside on his wrist, he has the tattoo of the word perfect. And I'm like, what? Yes.
That is serendipitous. I don't know what to call that. Right. Unbelievable.
I know. And I was like, what? And I don't know where I gained this like courage, but I was like, can I take a photo of your wrist? And so here I am, his wrist is on the table and my hands are shaking, trying to take a photo of his wrist. And it was like getting all blurry and everyone's crowded around. And I was like, can you actually hold up your hand? And so I have a picture of Mark Jacobs kind of like waving his hand. And so he's like, hello, perfect. And it shows the tattoo.
A visual representation of your mission.
Right. And it was just like, wow. And that's when I really like saw when you are in a state of joy and happiness and just kind of living in the moment, amazing things happen. And also when you have that courage to step out of your comfort zone, like I was so afraid to ask him his definition of perfect, but look what happened when I did.
Exactly. One of the things that really strikes me about you is how you always get through your fear and you don't let it stop you. And one of the things that I also noticed is you mentioned that after your hospitalization, you saw a total of 25 doctors who, I'm not sure if they gave you different diagnoses, but you were on so many different medications. I can't imagine seeing 25 doctors in and of itself. And nothing helped you feel better. And so you made the decision to heal yourself. And I'm very curious about how you found the strength to listen to your inner voice about what your mind, body, and soul needed.
So yeah, I started seeing just doctors from all different professions, like Eastern medicine, Western medicine, holistic, health coaches, nutritionists, like just everything to try to find something to heal me. And it was difficult. And there was this point, I remember I was leaving yet again another doctor, and he basically told me everything I was doing and everything like that I was told by this one person that I trusted, believed in, was wrong. And at that point, I was like just so frustrated. And I remember like after this doctor, I was with my mom and we went to have lunch somewhere, and I looked at the menu and I couldn't eat anything, yet this doctor now just said like everything I was doing health-wise or nutrition-wise was wrong. And I just was so confused because it was just all different opinions. And what I realized also is like health is probably the only field where people can have completely different opinions and both be right. And
Yes.
That's like, you know, there's the paleo diet, the South Beach diet, the vegan diet, and everyone has their own research behind them. And so at this moment, I remember thinking like, I'm just going to take what I feel is right from each doctor and pursue that. Because, you know, it was like nobody really knew what they were talking about. And you kind of have to take health in your own hands, just like you have to take your life in your own hands, your dreams in your own hands.
What were the different pieces of that?
So it was not being so strict on food. Like at this moment, before I decided this, I was not able to eat fruit, sugar, meat, dairy, fish. Like it was just, I wasn't able to eat anything. I was eating like rice and potatoes because I couldn't even digest vegetables. So it was obviously no way to live. And so I figured, you know what, I'm gonna make a journal of what I eat and see what does fit well with me and what doesn't, versus trying to be on like this diet of a certain diet with a label, right? Like I think I really believe in bio-individuality, where there's no such thing as one diet fits all, because we all have a different body.
I agree.
So that's that part. And then there's some integrative medicine, so the medicine part, and then a lot of spirituality with meditation.
Is that something that you still follow today?
Differently, like my body changed, my digestion changed. So like one point I was vegan for 3 years and then my body changed and I wasn't able to digest that anymore. Now I'm still like dairy free. So those things, you have to be able to be fluid with it and really listen to what works and what doesn't. And then regarding meditation, I've always had a spiritual component in my life, That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm meditating as like I was before, where I was really trying to heal because I was suffering from PTSD. And so I would make sure to sit in silence and do guided meditations. Now I meditate while I'm walking. I meditate while I'm driving. Like there's other forms of meditation. I think I'm also mentally stronger. And so it's not being so strict, like, oh my God, I need to meditate this way. And then if I miss it, then I'm like, oh, well, I already missed it. Same with exercise, right? Like I feel like when people go on these binges where like, I'm going to eat super healthy. I'm not going to have any sugar. I'm going to exercise every day. And then they're like, I have to do this for 30 days. And then what, right? Like your life is longer than 30 days. So why are you doing it this way, right? Like
exactly. That's why I think things like restriction of any sort doesn't work, because eventually you'll end up going back to what you want if it's not for the right reasons. As a result, you wrote a cookbook called the Simple Gluten-Free Vegan Cookbook, super easy, super delicious recipes made with love. So there was a gift in all of this, and people can buy that book on Amazon. And I'm assuming that Hello Perfect eventually kind of served its purpose, and you, as you grew, your vision also changed. Is that a correct assessment of how you got from Hello Perfect to Wax?
Good question. Very good question. So like there was two parts of this. One, after my near-death experience, I knew that I needed to share this story. And there's a long time that, I was feeling sorry for myself, asking myself why this happened to me. And as moment I began asking why this happened for me, that's when I really had this drive to continue to try to strive and chase these dreams of inspiring people, even through the challenges and the physical pain and all of that. But there was something that just wasn't vibing, I guess you could say. And there was this disconnect between the two. So then I realized, okay, my journey is my personal journey. So that's when I kind of started to grow my personal brand. And so that's when I started the Alexa Carlin Instagram and the Alexa Carlin blog. And so there's this new personal brand growing while still having Hello Perfect. And I really wanted to be a public speaker, but when nobody would hire me to speak, that's when I was like, okay, I want to start my own events, because if no one's going to hire me, I still have this burning passion and fire to speak. So I have to find a way to make it happen for myself. And that was through putting on my own small events that I did through this site called meetup.com. It's just local meetups. And I did it under the Hello Perfect name. So it's like a Hello Perfect meetup. And that's that way, it was kind of overarching health, confidence, self-esteem, all of these different positive messages. And I really was trying to grow Hello Perfect to be this positive media site. And I was doing these events and I fell in love with it. My first event had 5 people and I was super excited. My next event had 10 people. I always invited 3 to 4 speakers that I knew personally. They were they had their own blog or their own business to come and speak so they could bring their audience, since I didn't have that big of an audience yet. And so I was doing these events, but it wasn't a moneymaker or anything. And I was having this vision to grow Hello Perfect into a positive media site where it was all just positive messages. When I continue to say that, it took a while, maybe a few years really, to finally think wait a minute, if I'm trying to grow my business to be a media site, and I continue to say I can't wait until someone takes over the media site, then isn't that a sign that maybe that's not the route I should be taking? And so that's when I was I had this epiphany light bulb moment that was wow, if I'm just waiting until I'm big enough for someone to take this part over, then why am I trying to create my business to be that? And so that's when I really went all in on the public speaking part. And
okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
As a result, you founded Women Empower Expo, which is held twice a year. This is the 5th, correct?
This will be the 5th, yes.
Yes. And it's held in Washington, D.C. and Fort Lauderdale. As you said, it was initially under your other brand. It did start small. It's grown each year. And I would characterize it, having attended the one in DC, as something for women entrepreneurs and executives, or really any woman interested in learning from other women through speeches, sessions, workshops, and panels. And I think it's clear what gave you the idea for this. Do you have any advice for women who are considering pivoting from one thing to another like you've done?
Yes, really tune in to what makes you feel happy and where you feel most alive and energetic. Energy is so important to success. I don't think enough people talk about it. And I've just recently, in the past few months, I've just continued to talk about it in my latest speeches and my latest speaking engagements, because I really noticed who are the people that I look up to and what do all of them have in common? They have endless amounts of energy and confidence. And it sets you apart. And so you have to tune in to what makes you feel most alive, because that's what is going to help you continue to pursue your dreams and your goals, regardless of the challenges, and make that impact. If you don't have energy, how can you give energy to others? People are going to want to buy from you, listen to you, learn from you, feel inspired by you, by what they feel from you. And that all relates back to energy. And so that really helped me decide, okay, this is a pivotal moment. Hello Perfect was my first baby, I guess you can call it. And anyone that's an entrepreneur understands, your business is your baby. OmniPeace was my first dive into entrepreneurship, but it was a product and it was under a different company. I was a licensee. And then Hello Perfect was my first creation of something. And it was so hard to pivot from that. But what I realized is that it's not like I'm giving this up, or it's not that it failed or anything. It's this journey led me to discovering this need for women. And I went from doing these small events thinking I need to bring this to a larger scale. And that was the idea for Woman in Power Expo. But without Hello Perfect, I would have never had this idea. And as soon as I made that pivot, I grew very quickly. And it wasn't that it was easier. It was actually much more difficult. It was much riskier because I was investing more money into it. It was bigger. But when you are aligned with what brings you energy and what brings you joy, your hard work, you start to see the results and you get that energy back, whether that energy is in the form of money, right? Money fuels more energy so you can continue to strive and make that impact, or it's in the form of accomplishments or people. For example, people showing up to my event. I mean, like I said, my first Hello Perfect event had 5 people. My first Women in Power Expo had almost 2,000 people. And so it's really understanding that it's not easier, but you start to see the results and you feel something different when you are in alignment.
And now I looked at your site, you've had 4 successful events, 10,000 attendees, and 350 exhibitors. How do you want to further scale?
Good question. So I am scaling in 2019 to 3 cities. So now it will be 3 events per year. And it will not be on the East Coast. So we're going to go middle of the country somewhere. The city hasn't been announced yet. And
nice.
then I'm really excited. And then looking into 2020 as a possible 4th. And then I'm not positive. So it's kind of like you have to have a plan of action and know where you're headed, but you also have to be open to different opportunities. So right now, the goal for expansion is to move it more out west We've had a lot of interest from people that, maybe aren't able to fly out and attend or whatever the case may be. And so my goal is to reach more people, get more people involved, and really scale it to be the go-to hub, the go-to event of the year in your region for female leaders and entrepreneurs and executives and people who are making a difference in their own respective industry, learning from each other, getting inspired from people of different industries. And really my goal is, in order to fuel this, in order to reach more people, is getting bigger companies behind us, whether that's sponsors, strategic partners, whatever it may be. And that's where I'm looking to grow.
And it makes sense to have sponsorship, because one of the things that I noticed is that your ticket prices for what you offer are relatively inexpensive. And I think that's important because so many entrepreneurs, people who are involved with startups, don't have a lot of money. And so I noticed a lot of diversity in both the ethnic makeup of who was there, but also age-wise. The age span was, I think, like 13 to up onwards. So that seems to be done by design. And why do you think that's important?
It is done by design. Thank you for noticing. I think it's very important because any event that I've been to that's focused on women in business, or women in general, have been very niched out to either demographic and background, ethnicity, or age, like millennial focused or not millennial focused. When I was speaking, and discovering this need, I was speaking to a lot of women's organizations, and they were all older women. Mm-hmm. Or I would attend conferences that were marketed to me as a millennial, and it was all millennial women. But I was like, you are doing amazing things in your industry, or as you as an influencer, or you as an up and comer, and you have done amazing things and are still, both of you need to know each other because you guys can learn from each other. And my mentors, they told me that I'm their mentor. And I think that's so important for the older generation of people who are very successful in what they've been doing and where they're going. And even so, a lot of these women are also reinventing themselves, right? Starting podcasts, starting blogs, maybe changing careers. It's so important for them to also learn from the millennial generation and younger, and vice versa. And I think in order for us to really create the change we want to see on a societal level, we need to create that connection on an individual level.
I think that connection that you're talking about may be related to my next question, which is, I understand that the Inc. 500 is simply a measurement, but it is notable that, and for listeners who don't know, Inc. is a magazine, and every year they have a list of companies that are successful. Only 12 of 500 founders on the list in 2018 are female. So why do you think that is?
There's a lot of reasons I think that is. And one major reason is because while there's a very heavy growth in female entrepreneurs, but majority are solopreneurs. And I think that's because one, women are afraid to ask for their worth. For something of value. They have this sense that it's not valuable enough, or like they question. It's really interesting to think about this. It's been seen, like from my own research and other podcasts and videos I've listened to of successful women talking about this topic, is that when women are creating this amazing product, we still think that it might not be worth getting that investment from a VC or an angel investor. And even if we are going that route, we're still like we still want to make sure that the product or service is like perfect, because we're people pleasers. And I know that's a generalization, but it's true. We like to make sure what we're doing is going to make other people happy as well. And we want to be very careful to give something of value so, people don't retreat back. And I think that's something we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And compare that to men, they don't have any shame asking for $5 million in investment for a product that's half as good as what a woman might be pitching. And I think that's really important, because men feel, and this is again is a generalization, but this is based on research that I've been doing and other people I've been listening to, is that men feel that they deserve that money. And I don't think women feel that. And I think that needs to be a mindset shift. And with that mindset shift, I think we'll see more people on that list.
And I think with events like yours, with women talking to one another, that is definitely one of the first steps in affecting change. One of the things I wanted to ask you, because you're 27, has your age ever affected your entrepreneurship in a positive or negative way?
Yes, both. So on a negative way, it's easier to be taken advantage of regarding money, especially as I'm young, new in the industry, and a woman. There was this one time when I was meeting with different contractors, like whether it was AV or whoever it was, and they pitched me a certain price, and I was like, wow, this is way too much money. And I knew, because I was educated before going into this meeting. I had other friends that were in the trade show expo business, and they were male, and I knew what they were paying. And I spoke up and I said it right away. And I said, this should not be the cost. You're charging me, and we don't need this power. We don't need this. And I got the price I asked, because I was educated in that. And that's where I talk about knowledge is power, and also knowledge breeds confidence. So right. That, in a sense, was definitely based on age and maybe gender as well. But of course, I can't say for sure. But definitely being new in an industry, it was easy to be taken advantage in that sense. And then on the positive side, it's helped because it's gotten me a lot of notoriety because of what I'm doing at such a young age. Like after my first event, I was featured on the cover of Meetings and Conventions magazine, which is one of the largest publications in my industry, as one of the top 15 young go-getters to watch. And that was amazing and really helped me scale and get recognition in my industry as a young professional.
I can only imagine. That must have been an amazing moment. And it's why I think a lot of people see you as a leader and as a trailblazer. You, as you know, I've co-founded CentSai, a financial literacy platform that's focused on making personal finance relatable. And what I was wondering is, what are the distinct economic challenges you've heard women entrepreneurs discuss in your conference?
Good question. One of the main things would be funding. A lot of people are bootstrapping, including myself, and how do we find a way to make it work with the small budget we have and gain that confidence in what we're doing, to invest in ourselves, to understand that when you delegate, you grow. When you invest in your education, you grow. When you invest in online education, mentorship programs, you grow. And so I think that is just starting where people are understanding that. And especially at my event, finally, that's why we make it such an easy entrance fee of starting at $30. Our tickets now go up to $100 for VIP, but when you just invest $30, people take it a little bit more seriously. And then they see what these other women are achieving, and they hear what they're doing. And you all hear, like, they didn't do it by themselves. And so I think that's a main common problem, is women are just trying to do everything themselves and be this solo entrepreneur, but you're not going to get on the Inc. 500 list doing that.
It's difficult for sure.
Right.
And so another thing that I just want to very briefly mention, and it's helped me personally, you have a course that you have also created in addition to everything else, which is about becoming a professional speaker, something that you do so well. Can you tell me just briefly about the course and then what you plan to speak about at WEX this year? Can you give us a sneak peek into that?
Yes, definitely. So the course itself, I developed over the past 4 years. I've been speaking professionally for 4 years. And really in the past year and a half, I just started receiving tons of emails and DMs and messages of how I did it. How did I become a public speaker? How did I grow my business? With very limited funding, and public speaking has been my number one marketing vehicle to grow my business, that along with social media, but they go hand in hand because with social media, the moment that it started to take off was when I started to do live stream, which is public speaking. And when I was getting all these messages, like I, of course, email everyone back, but then it got to the point in the past year where I couldn't email everyone individually and just teach them over just this email. So I started collecting everyone's questions, and I started to really tune in to what works for me on the public speaking side. And I was developing this curriculum, and it was a year of really developing it. And I was waiting because I wanted to make sure that whoever goes through the program really gets their ROI. And so I knew that there was something missing in regards to like making this program also different than what's out there already. There's a lot of stuff out there that might be like how to actually speak, right? Like what's the art of speaking? Or they talk about the business side of becoming a professional speaker. But public speaking is something that everyone needs. And so it's really, my program is focused on the entrepreneur side, like how to use public speaking to grow your business. And, if you want to be a paid public speaker, it will also help you create that as well, how to create an impact and income. And what I realized was on the other side of it. So as a conference organizer, I go through over 500 speaker applications per event. And I was noticing what stands out to me. And then it clicked. I was like, okay, this is what was missing in my program. And so it's not just coming from the public speaking side, but also the conference side of what really stands out in your pitch. And this regards to pitching on an application, sending a cold email, like how do you get recognized, and what do you need? What should you put in your branding and across your social media platforms? And so that really led to this course, Be a Public Speaker, on teaching entrepreneurs and leaders and speakers how to make an impact and income, sharing their message authentically with others.
Wrapping up, I just want to make sure that our listeners know where to find you, where your event is, the dates. Can you give us that?
Yes. So, and what I'm speaking on.
Yes.
So Saturday, November 10th is the Woman in Power Expo in Fort Lauderdale at the Fort Lauderdale Convention Center. If you are a VIP or social ticket holder, we're going to have our Friday night reception to kick it off. And you could find all the information at wexftl.com. So wexftl.com.
It's a very appropriate topic, I think.
It's a game changer. It is, yeah.
If you could be anyone that you wanted just for a week to see what it was like, who would that be and why?
That's a really good question. And the person that's coming to mind is actually shocking me because I wouldn't think that this would be my answer, but I'm going to go with it. So I would be Michelle Obama for a week because I would really want to understand the experiences she has been through and understand the state of women. And I think she's doing amazing things for girls and women all over. And I would definitely want to be able to learn in her shoes.
That is so true, and she's such an inspiration to so many people, as are you. I want to thank you so much, Alexa, for joining us today on SheVentures.